Hello, mamas. So glad you are here today. We are recording a podcast today in our Midlife Motherhood Facebook community. And you may say, what is a midlife mama? A midlife mama is any mom who has a child that has reached adulthood. Some of you have some kids that are smaller. Some of you have kids who are heading off to college. Some of you are mamas who have all adult children that are grown and married and living their own. Just like me, I've raised my 5 adult kids, 4 of them are married. I created this Facebook community because I wanted midlife moms to have a safe place to grow. You know, we have felt beautifully supported in our mothering journey. We were supported when they were babies and toddlers and grade schoolers and even teen years. We felt a lot of support. But when our kids reach adulthood, suddenly the world goes quiet and we're left wondering, what am I supposed to do now? What does my motherhood look like now that my children have reached adulthood? We're just a group of mamas who gather together to support each other, to spur each other on, to talk about the topics that matter to us. What does it look like to let go? What does it look like to release expectations? What does it look like to love our adult children? This month, we're continuing on the topic of love. And this is such a great topic. Today, we are going to talk about a lesson from the Bible. And it's a story that we're all familiar with. It's about a father and a son. And usually when we talk about this story, we talk about the son. But today, I really want to focus in on the father and what he did, because we can learn some valuable lessons on love from this father. I'm going to read from a passage in Luke 15, verses 11 through 28. And we all know this story. It's very familiar. You'll recognize it here. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger one said to the father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. And not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had, and he set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. And after he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. And so he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to the fields to feed the pigs. And he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. And when he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired hands have food to spare, and here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men.' So he got up and he went to the father. But while he was still a long way off, the father saw him, and he was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and he kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And so they began to celebrate." And oh man, I've read this story so many times, and we always focus on the son. And years ago, the Lord said, "I want you to look at that dad. Look at what that dad is doing. You could learn some stuff from him." And so the first thing the father did was he surrendered his wants. The father let his son go. The father gave his son the inheritance. The father didn't demand that the son would stay. The father completely surrendered control. The father let go. See, love is a posture of expanse and openness. Love doesn't hold on tightly. Love lets go. Love surrenders to our benevolent King, and I see the Father doing that. I see the Father literally just letting go. And I think, oh my gosh, how much pain, mamas, have we experienced because we've refused to let go? We've held on to that child so tight. We've held on to that child who has struggled and made poor choices and made a mess of their life. And we've just held on and we've held on. And here, what this father did was he just let go. And I think that's a gift for us. That's a lesson for us to learn, that it's okay to let go. It doesn't mean that we're giving up on our child. It just means that we let him go. We release him to God. We surrender. And we don't feel that The tension of not letting go is very painful. And I know we've experienced it. We've experienced it, mamas. It's so hard, but there's such a release and a feeling of peace when we let go. And I think how brave of that father to do that, to just let his son go. The next lesson we can learn from this father is that he was expectant. I imagine this father as he was going about his work, going about his day, doing what he normally did. I can imagine him looking down the lane, looking off into the distance, wondering, is this the day my boy's going to come home? Is this the day? There was an expectancy in his heart. I don't believe he was sitting still, wringing his hands in deep despair, in frustration. I believe he just believed his God, and he believed that one day he would see that son return. There was such an expectancy in his heart, and it got me thinking about us mamas. Do we feel that about our kids who have walked away? Do you have expectancy in your heart? Or are you so distraught and pining for the way you wish that things would be that you can't hardly function? You've lost your joy. You've lost your hope. But when we look at this dad, he was not a hopeless man. I imagined him thinking, love returns. Love return. This son knew he could return because he was loved. Love returns back to love. How are you doing, mama, in the waiting? How are you doing in the waiting for your child to return? Are you expecting God to move? Are you expecting God to move on their behalf? Are you entrusting this child to God? I think of my own story. I have a couple kids who aren't with God right now, and I have prayed for many, many years for them, but I'm not without hope because I know that God is bigger and greater than anything that they experience right now. And I know that God loves them even more than I do. And I know that God will go to great lengths to reach them. And so, mamas, we have to have this hope. And this is why our connection with God in this season is so important. While we release our child, we cling tightly to God. We cling so fast. And we walk by faith. We don't walk by sight. We may not see. We may not see any good for a while. We may not see any change for a while. But that doesn't change our expectancy. So those are 2 lessons we learned from the Father this week. That we let go. Surrender, release. It is the most freeing thing we can do. Because it's not like we're letting our kids go into nothingness. We're just letting them go. We're handing them over to God. And then he has his free way. And God is God, and he will do what he does. And he is moving on their behalf. And sometimes it doesn't look like we want it to look. And sometimes our kids will go down ways and paths that we never dreamed that they would. But it doesn't change who God is. And it doesn't change that we let go and we rest in him. And then we have an expectant heart. Expect that you will see your child walking up the lane one day. I expect that. Join us next week as we talk about 2 more lessons we can learn about this father who loved really well. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. If you would like to be part of a community of other midlife mamas, please join us in the Facebook group where we have live conversations just like this each week. To catch all the latest from me, follow me on Instagram at @phinkelman. And for show notes, head to my website, pamelahinkelman.com/podcast for all my free resources to support midlife mamas. Until next time, remember, there's grace